Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. I am so excited to be hanging out with you guys right now, because today we are unpacking an epic historical mystery. We're going way back, over 2,500 years ago. We're going to be looking at this massive ancient building project that just completely stalled out, a hero who was honestly ready to throw in the towel, and how the whole thing was ultimately saved by a secret power. It's a story packed with strange visions, scary bullies, and a plot twist that literally changed history. So, let's get into it.
But hey, before we jump in the time machine, let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever faced a literal mountain of a problem? You know, the kind of problem that is just so massive you feel totally overwhelmed just looking at it? Maybe it's a super tough school year that feels like it's just dragging on forever. Or a subject in class you literally can't seem to wrap your head around. Or maybe it's even a bully on the playground who just won't quit. Look, we all face these huge obstacles, right? Well, the hero of our explainer today, he knew exactly what that felt like.
Section 1. A Mountain of Trouble.
So, meet our main character, a guy named Zerubbabel. And man, he had an enormously stressful job. He was put in charge of rebuilding God's ruined temple in Jerusalem, completely from scratch. Try to imagine moving these massive truck-sized stones and heavy timber, but without any modern cranes or bulldozers. Crazy, right? Well, he and his workers, they started off super strong, laying the foundation. But then, the adversaries stepped in. These were some seriously scary enemies, basically ancient bullies, who absolutely did not want this temple built. The historical records tell us that right from the get-go, these bullies troubled the builders, weakened their hands, and actually forced them to stop working using sheer force and power. Just imagine the disappointment. Zerubbabel's giant construction project was forcibly shut down. That stoppage, it became a giant and movable mountain of difficulty right smack in the middle of his path.
Section 2. The Golden Candlestick Vision.
Okay, so Zerubbabel was totally stuck. But God had a supernatural solution, and he delivered it in a dream to a prophet named Zechariah. Now, imagine you're fast asleep, and suddenly you're waken up by an angel who asks, "Hey, what do you see?" Zechariah looked, and he saw this bizarre, incredibly beautiful, almost sci-fi-looking golden plumbing system. There was a solid gold candlestick, a bowl on top, 7 lamps, and pipes connecting all of them. And right next to this intricate golden lampstand, 2 living olive trees, one on the right side and one on the left. Zechariah was, understandably, totally confused. He literally asked the angel, "What are these, my lord?"
Which brings us to Section 3, the secret power source.
So let's dive into this and see what this is all about. In this wild vision, those 2 olive branches were actually emptying golden oil out of themselves, straight through those golden pipes and directly into the bowl of the candlestick. And why? To keep those lamps burning continuously. The angel explained that those 2 olive trees are the anointed ones that stand by the Lord of the whole earth. And that flowing golden oil, that actually represents the Holy Spirit. It's divine light, love, and power flowing directly from God's own presence. God was basically showing them that believers don't have to generate their own fuel. Nope, they are constantly given the strength to push forward by God's own Spirit.
And so the absolutely crucial point is right here in the message the angel gives for Zerubbabel. Actually, read this with me. "Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts." Guys, this is the centerpiece of the whole vision. God was telling Zerubbabel, listen, you don't need huge muscles to win this. You don't need a massive army to fight off these bullies. You just need my Spirit. Human strength didn't start this work, and human strength definitely wasn't going to finish it.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the massive difference between how the world operates and how God operates. You know, the world's way is all about pomp, boasting, and flexing human strength. It's loud and it relies entirely on force. But God's way? It is entirely different. God often starts with a day of small things. He uses quiet confidence, living faith, and the steady, unstoppable power of the Holy Spirit. Sometimes God even allows obstacles and bullies to test us, right? To teach us how to master difficulties, not by fighting back with our fists, but by trusting entirely in His quiet power.
Section 4. The temple is finished.
When you actually trust in that secret power source, the results are incredible. God made this amazing promise to Zerubbabel about that massive problem stopping his work. God declared, "Who art thou, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel thou shalt become a plain." Wow! That giant mountain of trouble, the bullies, the stalled construction, God promised it would be completely flattened out into a perfectly level plain. The obstacles the enemy placed there would totally disappear, all because the powers of heaven were stepping in to aid the builders. Let's take a quick look at exactly how this played out on our timeline. First, Zerubbabel laid the foundation. Then, the adversaries stopped the work. At that point, it really looked like it was game over. But then, Zechariah the prophet delivers this incredible vision of the golden oil and the Spirit. Re-energized by that promise, the workers start building again. And exactly as God promised, the very hands of Zerubbabel, which laid the foundation, actually finished it. The historical record shows the house was completely finished on the 3rd day of the month of Adar, in the 6th year of the reign of King Darius. Boom! The mountain was conquered.
Now here comes a bit of an unexpected twist. The temple was finally rebuilt and dedicated with so much joy. But it actually looked a bit disappointing to some of the older folks there. Why? Well, because the first temple, the one built by Solomon, was incredibly magnificent and packed with visible miracles. I mean, it had visible supernatural fire that came straight down from heaven. It had a glowing cloud of glory. It had the famous Ark of the Covenant. But this second temple, it didn't have any of those flashy, magical signs. There was no visible fire and no glowing cloud filling up the room.
But here is where it gets absolutely fascinating. Despite the missing supernatural fireworks, another prophet named Haggai made this crazy promise. He said, "The glory of this latter house shall be greater than of the former." Wait, what? God promised he would fill this new, seemingly less impressive second house with a glory that would completely outshine the first temple. For centuries, learned men scratched their heads trying to figure this out. How in the world could this smaller, quieter building ever be more glorious? And here is the ultimate plot twist. Centuries later, that promise was fulfilled when Jesus of Nazareth physically walked right into the courts of that very temple. The prophet Haggai actually called him the desire of all nations. So you see, the second temple wasn't honored with a glowing cloud. It was honored with the physical presence of God himself in human flesh. Jesus taught in its courts. He healed the sick inside its walls. Because Jesus was there, the glory of that second temple infinitely exceeded the first one. That quiet, faithful work of Zerubbabel actually set the stage for the greatest event in history.
Section 5. Facing your own mountains.
So how does this incredible history lesson help you right now? Whether you are 10 years old or 100 years old, you are going to face massive obstacles in your life. That's just a fact. So here is your practical checklist for overcoming your own daily mountains. First, remember you don't need to be the strongest or the loudest. Trust God's Spirit, not your own might. Second, have living, unfaltering faith that God is quietly supplying you with that golden oil of strength every single day. Third, remember that God actually allows obstacles to train you and develop your inner strength. They aren't there to crush you, they are there to teach you how to be a conqueror. And finally, claim the promise given by Jesus in Matthew 17:20. Nothing shall be impossible unto you.
You guys have access to the exact same unseen, unstoppable power that flattened the mountain for Zerubbabel. It's never about your physical power. It's about the quiet strength God places inside your heart. So, I'm going to leave you with this to think about as you go through your week. What mountain will you conquer with God's Spirit today?